Hello, this is Professor Dr. Deepika Srivastav from the English department. Today's lecture is for MA 4th semester students. The topic is Samskara, a novel written by U.R. Anant Murthy. This was published in 1965 and it was made into a film in 1970. Now, this novel created a lot of controversy in academics and non academic circles for its criticism of Hindu rituals, Hindu tenets, and everything associated with Hindu religion. The novel was originally written in Kannada and translated into English by A.K. Ramanujan. The subtitle of his translation is A Rite for a Dead Man. This is the English translation with which we are mainly concerned. Samskara is a masterpiece of modern literature and it is a tale of existential suspense, a life of death encounter between the sacred and the profane, the pure and the impure. This is what Samskara is all about. Udupi Raja Gopal Acharya Anant Murthy. This is the full name of the writer. He was a critic of Kannada language. He was also a professor and a vice chancellor in a Kerala university. So he was associated with academics. The novel was written by a Brahmin who questions the validity of casteism from the religious point of view. And this is what made the topic controversial. South Indian Brahmins have criticized the harsh portrayal of Hinduism and its conservative tradition. Nobody likes being made fun of, and this is what the South Indian Brahmins didn't like at all when the book was released by the novelist. The title has different meanings. Samskara has the following meanings, and there are plenty of them. The first is forming well or thoroughly, making perfect. That's the first meaning of samskara. The second is forming in the mind, conception, idea, notion. The third is preparation, making ready. The fourth is making secret and sacred as well. Then the fifth is consecration of a king or a noble person. Then the next is making pure, purifying, purification. The seventh is a sanctifying rite. Eighth is any rite or ceremony like Vivah, Mundan, name ceremony, God Bharai, Sagai, and other Hindu rituals which are performed right from the day a person is born and the day till the last rites of the person are performed. So all the religious rites are included in samskara. And the last meaning which comes to my mind is sacraments like the Christians have during baptism. So these are generally the meanings of samskara. Surprisingly, the novel incorporates most of the meanings of samskara. All are included one by one. I will briefly summarize the central theme, which is the death of Naran Appa and the complications that arise on the issue of his burial. Naran Appa, though a Brahmin, was an anti Brahmin in his deeds and actions. He spent his entire life defying Brahmin beliefs and lifestyle. He brought a low caste prostitute, Chandri, to the Agrahara and lived with her in his house openly when live in relationships were a taboo. Not only this, he openly consumed liquor, was very fond of all types of alcohol, and not only that, non vegetarian food. And to make matters worse, he invited his Muslim friends to the Agrahar openly, defying and insulting the Brahmins of the area. A Brahmin was not permitted to eat non vegetarian food, nor was he allowed to openly invite Muslims to his house and mix with them. This was then, of course, now things have become more lenient. Now, on his death, he died, and on his death, his burial became a complicated and a major issue. Brahmins did not want to perform his last rites because they were afraid that gurus and pandits of Sringeri might excommunicate them for performing last rites of a heretic. He was a Brahmin only in name. And so they were scared of performing the last rites. Even though the dead man was a Brahmin, nonetheless, he was an outcast. At the same time, they wanted the burial to be over because they were not permitted to eat or drink while a Brahmin corpse awaited cremation. According to the Hindu rites, food cannot be cooked or consumed till the body is lying in the premises. And this is practiced even today. Till now, this practice of not having anything is prevalent amongst all sections of Hindus. Finally, they left this issue to Pranesh Acharya, who was the head priest. This is the second character of the novel, Pranesh Acharya. And since he was the head priest, it was left on him to decide what to do with the body. And they thought that he, in his great knowledge of the Vedas, will obviously find a solution to the problem. Meanwhile, the concubine Chandri submitted all her jewels at the feet of the dead Naran Appa. This was really very great of her. Why did she do this? To meet the expenses of the burial rites or cremation or whatever. This shows the nobility of a low caste woman who was devoted to her dead lover. She could have gone her way, left him to rot, but she never did all this. She waited, she offered all her jewelry, and she did not move the premises till his last rites were over. Seeing this glittering gold in great amount, all Brahmins turned greedy. Now they wanted to perform the last rites so as to claim the gold which was kept at the feet of the dead man. Here the novelist shows the cheap character of the high-born Brahmins, and this was what was mostly criticized after the novel was published. The head, Pranesh Acharya, was scared that the lure of gold might corrupt his Brahmin community. So he pondered what to do, and he consulted all the Vedas, all the Hindu texts, including Manusmriti, and still he could not find a solution to the problem. In the meanwhile, the dead body started rotting also. He ultimately went to the Hanuman temple and prayed for divine intervention. Unfortunately, the monkey god refused to enlighten him, and there also he came back dejected. But an incident happened which changed the concept of Hinduism and the course of the novel entirely. While he was returning from the Hanuman temple, the prostitute Chandri tempted him with her charms in the darkness of the night and coyly invited him for a sexual encounter. He was so enamored that he fell for the temptation and made love to her there and then. Now, this is what, as I said, was the turning point of the novel. And the sexual intercourse transformed the priest Pranesh Acharya for all times to come. He felt he had no moral right to continue as the spiritual leader of his community of the Agrahari. So now onwards, he refused to direct Brahmins on the issue of performing the last rites. Naturally, he felt he had fallen from grace. In the meantime, the devoted Chandri, in desperation, approached lower caste people to perform the funeral rites because she was so bothered, so concerned for her dead lover. They also refused to meddle in the affair pertaining to a Brahman. So they refused, saying, "No, I cannot perform the last rites." Finally, she approached the Muslim section and pleaded to Ahmed Bari, the fish merchant. He accepted the challenge and secretly cremated the dead body at midnight. So ultimately, the last rites was performed but slyly and on the initiative of this devoted prostitute, the so-called low-born woman. Chandri, after the last rites were performed, wept for her dead lover and returned to Kundapura, her native village, having done her duty single-handedly. She performed her dharma, though there was no compulsion for her to do so. That was the story of Chandri, the low-born prostitute. Now let us see what happens to this high caste Brahmin. After his separation from the Brahmin community, Pranesh Acharya experienced physical isolation. He wandered in the forest aimlessly and entered a phase of transition which lasted till the end of the novel Samskara. At this point, he met Putta, who now becomes Pranesh Acharya's guru, and he guides him towards the end of the novel. What is the guidance he offers? He takes Pranesh Acharya to a carnival and finally to a prostitute. So, all the things which kept him away so that he may be able to perform his duties as a Brahman are now his for the taking. At the end, he got on the cart to Durvaspara, thus, he was unable to fulfill his dharma as a Brahman. That was the story of Pranesh Acharya. This is the summary in short of the novel. The writer contrasts many paths to salvation by taking up the story of Naran Appa, the sinner, and Pranesh Acharya, the so-called saint. Both characters are Brahmins and both did not perform their duties is what the writer is telling. One is not sure who amongst the two is performing his dharma and who is not. What is dharma? Dharma means duty, religion, justice, law, ethics, principle, right, which all Hindus have to perform during their lifetime. If we don't follow the path of dharma, then we will be denied salvation. Dharma differs from each caste in the Hindu community. For a Brahmin male, it means performing Vedic rituals and progressing through the four stages of life. What are these four stages of life? First is Brahmacharya. This is the life of a student. The second is Grahasth. This is the life of a householder. When a man marries, he raises children, he has his duties towards his wife and children. So that is Grahasth. Then is Vanprasth. This is the life of a hermit or a forest dweller. After one Brahman has performed his duties to the family, his wife and children, he leaves them and goes and spends his remaining life in the forest. So he becomes a forest dweller. And the last is sannyas. This is the most difficult period of a Brahman's life, and it is called the life of a renouncer. So these are, in short, the four stages of a Brahman's life. Now let us take the case of Pranesh Acharya. He was a celibate student initially. He studied the Vedas. Then he married Bhagirathi, an invalid woman of his own sweet will. Whether he did it purposely or whether he did it by some force, one can't say, but he married an invalid woman. He abstained from sexual intercourse purposefully as she was very repulsive. So he did not want to establish any physical contacts with his lawfully wedded wife Bhagirathi. He entered life of a renouncer, skipping the stage of a householder. This is not permitted in Hinduism. His blunder was of shifting from one stage to the other without performing duties of the previous stage. The worst was to follow. He agrees to have sexual intercourse with a low born prostitute. He denies this pleasure to his wedded wife, but he falls for the charms of a low caste prostitute. So, this was what he did. Now, let us take the case of the other Brahman in the novel, and he is, as you know, Naran Appa. He also discards his wife. He too ignores the duties of a householder. So both are the same ultimately. He casts off tradition of a Brahmin by sleeping with a low caste woman, eating meat, etc., which are all taboos in the Brahmin religion. And he does it openly, and he challenges the Brahmin community. Not only this, he also invites Muslims, and then he has a gala time with the Muslims eating non-vegetarian food. So this all was not permitted then. At the time the novel was published, this was the mid-60s, in the conservative Brahmin society. Of course, now rules for the Brahmins have become more lenient, and this is not taboo anymore. Brahmins, I've seen Brahmins eating non-vegetarian food, mixing with Muslims. I can't say whether they have a low caste woman as a prostitute or not, that I don't know. So, both the characters are unable to perform their dharma. This is what the writer is saying repeatedly, not once, not twice, but throughout the novel, he is underlying this fact. Pranesh Acharya has fallen from grace after making love with a low caste prostitute, and Narayan Appa too does the same folly, and he does it openly. So, who is the worst of the two is for you and me to decide. Thus, the entire novel represents a samskar or rite of passage. This is the most significant aspect of the novel. The most striking incident is that both find beauty in the low caste Chandri and ugliness in their own wedded wives, or for that matter, other females from the Brahmin community. They don't like any female from their own community. Both Brahmins erred here. A Brahmin cannot be completely of the world like Naran Appa, nor completely out of the world like Pranesh Acharya. Brahmins claim superiority. They think they are above everybody else. And so the rules laid down for them are absolutely strict, and they cannot be, they cannot be broken by Brahmins or for that matter anybody else. Thus, Sanskara studies both metaphysical and social aspects of Hinduism, and the entire novel revolves around these two aspects. Another theme taken up is life after death. Those leading a righteous life and following Vedic rules and rites achieve moksha. That is, freedom from the cycle of life and death. This is the aim of all Hindus. Nobody wants to be born, reborn, die, reborn. Everybody wants to attain moksha. And I think this tenet is also there in Buddhism. The next theme is the caste system. And the caste of the Brahmins have many do's and don'ts which they have to follow, whether willingly or unwillingly. They cannot break down rules of the community. But such restrictions are not for other castes or the lower caste. Life of the lower caste have no rules, no regulations, and their lives are simpler. They may follow Hinduism, they may not follow Hinduism. They are free to lead their own lives, and no one raises any finger at them for flouting rules, because basically they don't follow any rules. Brahmins in the novel are described in a very negative, shabby manner, and this was what irked all the Brahmins community, and especially the South Indian Brahmins, because the novel was written by a South Indian Brahmin. Females too are not spared. They are shown as short, plump, ugly, devoid of feminine grace, not having any charm, and they are normally not liked by the Brahmin males. The worst part is they are greedy, they are full of the lure for wealth, for gold, for money, and they are shown as being calculated. In contrast, look at the way the lower caste women are projected. They are all chaste, they are epitome of feminine grace, they have poise, they have beauty, and above all, they are faithful to their partners, whoever these partners are, whether they are from their own caste, whether they are from the upper caste. But this is a generalization, and this may not be true. Brahmin women are pretty, and there are many examples in the film industry, in the modeling industry, in the bureaucracy, showing their beauty, their intelligence, their poise, and feminine grace. So I don't at all agree with his generalization. Even otherwise, being a woman, do not like women being projected in such a shabby manner, be it the Brahmins or any other castes. Of course, I refrain from making any personal comments about the low caste females, because this is not my area, and I will not make any comments on the low caste, whether they are beautiful, whether they are devoted, whether they are faithful. That is for the writer to say, and I'm only explaining the writer's views here. Now, caste system has been also criticized by the novelist. He argues that if human beings are manifestation of God, how can sun be upper caste and the rest be lower caste? How is this possible? There has to be a all have to be born equals. There have to be an equality amongst all human beings. So he does not like Brahmins being the upper caste, the highest caste among Hindus, and some lower caste being so low that nobody wants to mix with them, and they are called the untouchables of the society. This also he abhors. Many Hindus argue that casteism has sanction of the Manusmriti and other holy books of the Hindus. The writer refutes this claim and says that Hinduism is a dynamic religion and it should not be identified with Veds or Manusmriti only. It should be expanded, it should bend its rule, and it should accommodate other religions and other tenets also. By the way, Anand Murthy was himself a South Indian Brahmin. Let me underline this fact. And he enjoyed many perks and privileges due to his caste, if I may add this. He became this, he became that, a vice chancellor, and he became a member of so many committees. I'm sure it was because of his high caste. Had he been from any other caste, he might not have achieved this greatness. Now, I agree that Hinduism is a sacred, dynamic religion. But beyond this, I will refrain from making personal comments on either Hinduism or the caste system that prevails in India. The best advice I can give you is to read the novel Samskara and reach your own conclusions. However, I will proudly say that I am proud to be a Hindu. Hindu is my religion, and I do not make any comments on the views projected by the writer in this novel. But nonetheless, he faced a lot of criticism for criticizing the Brahmin community. In the end, I can say what begins as a sanskara for a dead man becomes a rite of passage into a wholly different cycle of life for the other Brahmin, that is Pranesh Acharya. You decide who was right and who was wrong amongst these two people, and who was the greater Brahmin and who was the lesser one, or whether they were equals. On this note, I end my lecture on Samskara. Thank you.